Ah, yes, Blade. So I saw recently Wesley Snipes sniping on Twitter about the latest director to leave production on the new Blade film, and he tweeted that there were problems finding the secret source, and it got me reflecting on what was the secret source of the original Blade film. Along with The Matrix, The Crow, Terminator 2, Blade is another landmark film in my top 20 films of all time. I first saw it on VHS after my friend recommended it to me, and in our teens we would often argue which was better, Matrix or Blade, although arguably they're very different films, although Blade does actually have a bullet dodging scene in it if you remember. Blade is a dark, gritty, urban horror noir with litres of style and attitude. Snipe brought a stoic athleticism to the role and has some spectacular visuals. The cool costume design was also streets ahead of the slightly goofy looking multicoloured colour scheme of the original comic design. My favourite scene is probably the rave bloodbath scene and is quite possibly the best way to open a film. Aside from Trinity's rooftop chase in The Matrix, it really set the tone and is fantastic. The distinctive club theme called Confusion by New Order is an absolute 90s classic that is instantly recognisable. Blade was released in 1998 and was directed by Stephen Norrington. Blade follows the story of Eric Brooks, played by Wesley Snipes, a half-human, half-vampire known as the Daywalker, who possesses the strengths of vampires without their weaknesses except for the thirst for blood. Blade dedicates his life to hunting vampires, aided by his mentor, Abraham Whistler, played by Kristofferson. The film's antagonist, Deacon Frost, played by Stephen Dorff, is a vampire who seeks to become a vampire god by awakening the blood god La Mavra. Blade must stop Frost and his plans to dominate the human race. The budget of the film was $45 million and grossed $131 million worldwide. Critics generally praised Wesley Snipes' performance as Blade and the film's stylish action sequences. The dark tone and visual effects were also highlighted positively. However, some critics felt the plot was thin and the film was overly violent. Audience reception was significantly more positive. Fans appreciated the film's blend of action, horror and superhero elements, and Snipes' portrayal of Blade became iconic and the movie developed a strong cult following. Putting aside some dodgy swelling up effect scenes towards the end of the film, Blade succeeds as a dark urban horror film. I love the underworld of the secret vampire societies, the human familiars trying to curry favour with them so they get turned, Blade's never-ending battle, and was the first black Marvel superhero film, not Black Panther. Inevitably, sequels followed. Blade 2 was released in 2002 and directed by Guillermo del Toro. In Blade 2, Blade forms an uneasy alliance with the Blood Pack, an elite team of vampires, to combat a new breed of super vampires known as the Reapers. These Reapers are immune to traditional vampire weaknesses and are a threat to both humans and vampires. The film delves deeper into Blade's character and his struggle to protect humanity while battling his own nature. The budget for the film was $54 million and grossed $155 million worldwide. Blade 2 received mixed to positive reviews, with critics praising Guillermo del Toro's direction, the enhanced special effects, and the innovative creature design of the Reapers. However, some critics noted that the plot was still somewhat lacking. Audiences enjoyed the sequel for its intense action, improved visual effects, and del Toro's unique style. The film's darker and more horror-oriented tone was well received by fans of the genre. I like this film, there's some funny moments and cool fights, but for me, feels a bit more fantastical, which is in line with Del Toro's particular quirks as a filmmaker, and I do still prefer the original. Blade Trinity was released in 2004 and directed by David S. Goyer, who wrote the previous two films. Blade Trinity introduces the return of Dracula, also known as Drake, played by Dominic Purcell, the progenitor of the vampire race. Blade, along with his new allies, the Night Stalkers, including Abigail Whistler, played by Jessica Biel, and Hannibal King, played by Ryan Reynolds, must stop Dracula and a vampire faction led by Danica Talos, played by Parker Posey, from unleashing a virus that could destroy humanity. The film combines action and dark humour while concluding Blade's battle against the vampire threat. The budget for the film was $65 million and the box office gross was $132 million. Blade Trinity, however, was generally panned by critics. The film was criticised for its weak script, uneven tone and over-reliance on humour. Performances by new cast members, particularly Ryan Reynolds, were seen as a positive, but overall the film was considered a disappointment compared to its predecessors. Audience reactions were mixed to negative, or some appreciated the addition of humour and new characters, others felt the film deviated too much from the tone of the first two movies. The lack of a strong storyline and the focus on setting up a potential spin-off detracted from the overall experience. Unfortunately for me, Blade Trinity is a very mixed bag at best. There's some cool fights, some cool gadgets, but an oddly garish colour palette, and irritating focus on the Night Stalkers, Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel, with Reynolds doing his utmost to puncture any tension with a quip, some funny, some not. Apparently production was deeply troubled, with Snipes allegedly uncommitted and bored, which is a real shame. Blade meeting Dracula should have been more epic, and whilst it does try its best with a few thoughtful moments, it feels like a missed opportunity. Most terrifyingly, there is a deleted scene of a sequel baiting ending of Reynolds fighting a werewolf in a casino that looks absolutely terrible, and I'm really glad it was cut. Then things shifted to TV. Blade the series was released in 2006 and follows Blade, played by Sticky Fingers, as he continues his fight against vampires in Detroit. The show introduces Krista Starr, played by Jill Wagner, a former military veteran who becomes involved with Blade after her brother is turned into a vampire. Together they work to uncover a vampire plot involving a serum that allows vampires to walk in daylight. The series expands the Blade universe with new characters and deeper storylines. The series had a mixed reception and was cancelled after one season, with a total of 13 episodes. Viewership ratings varied, with a strong premiere but declining numbers leading to its cancellation. The series had a mixed critical reception. Some critics praised Sticky Fingers' performance and the expansion of the Blade universe, whilst others felt the series lacked the cinematic quality of the films and had uneven writing. Audience reception was also mixed. Fans of the Blade franchise appreciated the continued story and character development. However, many felt that the series did not live up to the high standards set by the movies, which I actually didn't mind. Sticky Fingers done a good job in the role, not as good as Snipes, and I like learning more about the lore and the caste system that Blade had to fight through. The Blade franchise, starting with the success of the first film, played a significant role in revitalising interest in superhero and vampire films, influencing the genre and contributing to the rise of comic book adaptations in cinema, whilst the third film and the TV series struggled to maintain the same level of critical and audience acclaim. Then earlier this year, the complete curveball announcement of a Blade game from the makers of Dishonored and Deathloop greeted us, which could be a brilliant immersive city explorer, but the trailer doesn't give too much away at this point. However, I enjoyed the Dishonored games. I have yet to play Deathloop, so there could be some real potential there, and I am quietly excited about that choice. And now that brings us full circle back to the current reboot in progress starring Mahershala Ali. Certainly a good casting choice, and his performance in Alita sowed the Blade seed effectively. Production problems, however, seem to have involved directors exiting the project due to creative differences. This can often be a sign that producers are pushing the directors in a direction they don't want to go with the material. Apparently the first director exited due to Blade being sidelined in favour of female characters, or woke walker as I call it. No, this will be a complete disaster. Strong female characters are fine by me, and actually in the original Karen does actually hold her own against the vampires, but it needs to be focusing on the most interesting character, who is Blade. So back to Snipes' original tweet. What is the secret sauce of Blade, if it can ever be captured again? A lean black actor with screen presence, a director with visual style, urban setting and a vampire class system, cool gadgets, choreographed brutal fights, thumping soundtrack, no message or woke ideology. There's plenty of comic plots to draw on to inject something new. And of course there needs to be a good story at the heart of it all. In the first film, Blade has to overcome the apparent murder of Whistler by Frost and kill his own vampire mother, which are quite dramatic events, and Snipes walks the line of showing just enough emotion when it counts. In Blade 2, Blade is reunited with Whistler, as clearly the filmmakers realise that their bond is at the core of the story, and that helps humanise Blade. He also has a subtle romance with the vampire daughter Nyssa, only for her to perish in his arms at the end. Blade Trinity explored Whistler's aging and Blade learning to trust others. Dracula is the one who started it all, and perhaps his fascination with Blade, today's elite society, could have been explored in much more depth. It's a shame that we'll never see Snipes or Kristofferson again in the roles one last time, and that Blade Trinity was their footnote. In terms of a Blade 4, maybe Morbius working with Blade to help enhance his serum could maybe be interesting. The TV show actually had one episode dedicated to a young Blade meeting Whistler for the first time, so perhaps the film could explore this angle. But regardless of what happens, the inner conflict of human versus vampire, trust versus loneliness, is part of Blade's complexity as a character, as well as black humour and slapstick, but not constantly. If it does this, then maybe the new film will have a chance. But, as Blade says,
some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Thanks for watching. If you learned or liked something in this video, please like and subscribe so I can keep growing my channel. Thank you, and let me know your thoughts below on the Blade franchise.